Hello, this is Michael Butterfield. I'm going to do a sharing video about the application that I've been working on. I plan on working on it a little bit more. So I made a quiz, a how much do you have in common with me quiz. And I tried to use a lot of the topics, the coding topics in this application. Almost used all of them. I think I'm missing one or two, but I'm going to go over the ones that I used and where I used them, so it's easier for you to see. The first one, JavaScript, loops, conditional statements, functions, variables, parameters, arrays, and associative arrays. So for this topic, I was able to understand and use many functions. So I use arrays in JSON serialization. So I'll show you those functions that I made. So I believe those functions are closer to the bottom. So yeah, in my JSON and JSON2 functions, I make arrays. The user basically enters in his name, age, and gender, and I make an array out of that, and then I serialize it, or stringify, and then I put it out as stringified or JSON.parse, depending on the function. But I'll get to that later. So those are where I use arrays, and I use variables in almost all of my functions, and if-else conditional statements. I use if-else conditional statements for local storage. So basically all of my questions, they have similar code to this, if it's not exactly the same. It has if the type of storage is not undefined, then it will add 2 to this score local storage variable, and I'll get back to local storage too. But this is just an if-else statements that checks if the local storage is undefined, because this is something that I learned on W3 schools, learning there, because if it is undefined, then you don't want to try to make it so the user is trying to use local storage. You want to let them know that your app isn't going to work. So it will say, sorry, you need a device with web storage, if they don't have it. But if they do have it, then everything will work just fine. So that's where I use an if-else statement. And so the next coding topic that I'm going to talk about is JavaScript object creation functions, inheritance, properties, methods. So I created 2 arrays in my JSON and my JSON2 functions. Those are the only 2. I showed you those arrays where the user enters a name, age, and gender, and it turns it into an array. That's where I created, or that's the object creation that I used. The next coding topic that I'm going to talk about is JSON parse and stringify. So I take the array that the user makes with his name, age, and gender, and I use JSON.stringify, and then array is the variable name, and the variable has the name, age, and gender taken from a user input text box. And then I use a getElementById to your info is, and then I call the JSON file. And this variable is actually not used in this function. This variable is copied and pasted. I made one function copied and pasted, so I should get rid of that. I will, and I'll pretty this up. But in my JSON2 function, this is where the information is not stringified, or it's not serialized, I guess you could say is the right word, because there's var. This is where I use the no JSON. It's where you use JSON.parse, and that's where it looks a little more pretty. But then, JSON is good for serialization. But here it looks a little more pretty if the user decides to have it be parse. And so I'll go over this and show you the example. Local storage API, storing and retrieving simple data, arrays, associative arrays, and objects. So each of my functions uses local storage to check. So I showed with the if-else statements, local storage is used in almost every single one of my functions to check if local storage is there, and if it is, I have a variable called score, and it will add whatever point the answer is worth to that score, and then I use local storage on that. So if the user exits out of the website and comes back, then the same score will still be there. and the user can take the quiz again, and that score will be added to the score that he or she had before. And the user can also reset the score by using a reset function that I made, which basically doesn't actually reset local storage, but what it does, if I can find it, what it does is it makes the number just, it assigns it the value of 0. So it doesn't reset it, it just assigns it the value of 0, which, I mean, it starts that way by default anyway. So it kind of resets it. If I can find it, answer. I might do a control F and reset. So yeah, local storage.score equals 0, document.get element by ID. This just basically says your score has been reset to then the local storage.score, because local storage.score is the variable that, or that I am assigning the score to that the user has. I just covered local storage. I'm going to find my notes here, I'm sorry. DOM manipulation. So I use DOM manipulation in my green, red, and blue functions. One of the questions asks what the user's favorite color is. And these functions are all pretty similar, but I have a document.body.style background color, and it changes the color of the background, and also the text within that question's div. So it either changes it to blue, green, or red. And then also I made a create function, and this creates what it does is it creates a link for the user. So basically it says, do you like this quiz that you've taken? Would you like to visit my website? And then the user clicks yeah, and what it does is it uses the create element, create text node, and attributes like that to create a link for the user. So create box, yeah, that's the name of my function. So create element A, it creates a link basically, and then create text node, this is what puts the link, or I guess the text on the link. So would you like to visit my homepage? Click here. That's what the link says. And then set attribute is how you set like the href, because within a link, you know, you can't just put A and expect it to know where to take you. You need an href. So that's what this does. And that is the create box function. Now, originally I was going to have it create a box, but I ended up doing a link instead. And Ajax. So Ajax is used with almost every function in my application. Let me just find a random function that uses it. So pop. So basically this question is, what kind of music do you like? And if it answers pop, there's a variable answer, and it gets a new XML HTTP request. And what this does is it replaces the div question3 with this z0.text. So I made 3 text files, and pretty much what they say is I agree with you, I disagree with you, or I somewhat agree with you. And then it displays to the user that they either get 1, 2, or 0 points. And that replaces the div where the buttons are, so the user can't just click the button over and over again and rack up all the points he or she wants. And then the last coding topic that I used in this application is standard JavaScript events, including those for mobile devices, for example, on touch, on begin, on load. So most of, if not all of my buttons use the onClick attribute, because that's how I call my functions. I mean, you make a button, button type equals button, onClick equals whatever the function is. And so that is how I call most of the functions, and that's kind of the backbone of this whole application. But then also, I use a welcome greeting that happens on load, and I made an onload function. It's very simple. On load, it's just an alert. So the window pops up and it shows the user a welcome message for my app. So that was going over all the coding topics that I used in this. I'm going to, I guess, just give a run through of my app right now and how it works. So you have it here. Let's refresh it. This is the onload function that I was talking about. So welcome to Michael's quiz. Find out how much you have in common with Michael here. What would you rather, play video games, go hiking, or watch a movie? Let's say watch a movie. So this is Ajax. This is actually a third part or a text document that is being put in this div element right here. So I can't just, I mean, did I click watch a movie? So that's 0 points, I think. So I can't just click the other buttons to see which one will give me points. What is your favorite color out of these three? Red, blue, and green. I like green, so great answer. I would have said the same thing, plus 2 points. So here, my score is 2. That's being stored in local storage. And this is from a separate text document, just like this one. Plus, I use DOM manipulation to change the background color. What would you rather listen to, metal, pop, or hardcore? If you click hardcore just for fun, I made it minus 500 points. So now you're, because that stuff is nasty. I'm not a fan. So yeah, that's the worst. I have to take away 500 points. All right. So what's your name? My name is Michael. Age, oh my goodness, don't laugh at me. I'm 26 already. I'm a male. And then you can click submit. And then, do you want your information serialized or no? So serialized, yes, it serializes it using JSON serialization. And if you don't, it uses JSON.parse. And this one is JSON.stringify. And if you click no, it uses JSON.parse. And then it says, do you like this quiz? If you want to visit my homepage, clicking the button will create a link. In oh yeah, it creates the link next to the reset the score button here. And by the way, you can reset your score to 0, just like that, because I had negative 400 and something. But if you click yeah, this is also DOM manipulation, and you can make as many of these as you want. So that's kind of fun. Make all these links to my homepage, and then they work. Takes you to mbutterfield.com. So I've been working really hard on this application, and I've been able to learn a lot. I think JavaScript is great. I hope to be able to successfully make the app with my team now. I think I'm ready for it. I'm excited. If you have any questions, I'm going to post this video to the class community. I'll try my best to answer. And I hope you enjoy this app. Thank you.